Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Is Aikido an alternative education system for humanity? That's my question for today. Allow me to start with a little story. A certain Terry Dobson, one of the first foreigners to study Aikido in Japan in the early 60s, told the story of his own enlightenment about Aikido while he was traveling on a train in the suburb of Tokyo in the middle of a drowsy spring afternoon. At that time, Terry Dobson was young, and like all the youngsters, especially when they practice martial arts, he was full of enthusiasm. He could hardly wait for a chance to test his martial skills in a real situation. But he knew that he could not use Aikido against another man without having a very good reason to do so. Aikido is an art devoted to peace, taught continuously Morihei Ueshiba, the Aikido's founder. So Terry Dobson dreamed about getting that legitimate opportunity to prove his martial abilities. And this opportunity got on the train in the shape of a drunken man who scared all the passengers with his violent yelling and very aggressive behavior. So Terry Dobson thought he could finally use his art, and in the way it was supposed to be used, to protect weak and innocent people. But while he was confronting him, just before he could hit him, he heard a voice, an old voice saying towards the troublemaker, "Hey man, what are you doing? Come here, speak to me," said an old man with a big smile on his face. The old man ignored the insults, because of course the drunkard kept on insulting everybody and didn't answer. But finally, when the old man asked, "What do you drink there?" Then the drunkard replied, reluctantly, but he replied, "I drink sake." "Oh, very good," said the old man. "I like sake too. I like drinking sake with my wife every evening in our garden." So he took the chance to link their lives with a tie of complicity, passing from their common passion for sake to asking about his wife. But when answering, I have no wife, I have no garden, because I have no house, I have no money, I have no job. Then the drunkard started to cry. The rough man had become a child, crying loudly in the fatherly embrace of the old man. And the old man was still consoling him when Terry Dobson left the train. Terry realized that the situation he had just witnessed was the real Aikido in action, and that a long time would pass before he could reach that level. Indeed, it was the perfect illustration of the Aikido's philosophy. So the question is Aikido a martial art, or is it rather an art inspired by martiality with the purpose of transforming the conflictual situation by removing the aggressiveness? By responding in a less proportional way to the aggressiveness, in Aikido you can protect yourself without aggressing the others. You can try to avoid the escalation of violence. In other words, Aikido tends to open the binary dimension of the conflict. As you can see, maybe, in order to create a space for compassion and forgiveness. Clemency is probably the key word we refer to. Clemency doesn't mean that you offer the other cheek after a slap, but that you can protect yourself without hurting your opponent. You try, without hurting your opponent. And this clemency responds to a greater idea, which is unconditional love. What does it mean, unconditional love? It means to develop a priori a positive attitude towards the others, just simply because we belong to the same humanity, just simply because we are supposed to be various components but of the same universe. Is it a pure philosophical idea? Is it purely theoretical? Well, I really ask you the question. But let me answer with another question. What do you feel? What do you feel when a baby is born? What do you feel, if not unconditional love? The baby has no particular merits to benefit from your love, except to be alive and to be innocent, maybe. But as simple as that. As simple as that, and as hard as that, since this idea has to be extended to the whole humanity, regardless the lack of innocence for most of it. But okay, we know that feeling. The challenge is, of course, to extend that feeling to the whole humanity. So beyond this speculative idea or speculative representation of unconditional love, Aikido provides you a very concrete education system to achieve that behavior, to achieve that attitude. The system aims at changing step by step your state of mind through the repetition of physical experience. For example, the development of mutual empathy is reached through the alternation of roles, whereas after my partner receives my technique, I receive his. Whoops. Whoops. I have to remain the same, even if I act different roles. For example, by putting my role in a sincere attack to the opponents, overcoming the fear of his reaction. I cannot attack like this, okay? Or by performing a technique without giving way to fear. And this way of training helps you to learn how to remain true to yourself, no matter what the external conditions or circumstances are. And it is, of course, essential if you want to develop balanced and equal relationships with the others. Another key word in this education system is trust, because it requires initially acceptance without rational understanding. If critical mind is always important, it is as important to shut it off when required in order to reach some levels of experience impossible to conquer otherwise. And I have to confess that it is probably one of the most difficult parts for a Western practitioner, but it is really essential to reach some levels of experience. Therefore, the knowledge of the formal shape, the external shape of the teachings, of the techniques, comes first, and the internal understanding comes much later throughout your life. Seen as a door to open the binary dimension of the conflict, Aikido escapes the walls of the dojo, of course. The dojo is the room where we practice. A little bit like this stage, but much bigger. And that is the purpose. Aikido can be applied to your daily life. It's rather easy to imagine, at least theoretically, how you can apply those principles with your family, with your friends, with your colleague, with your husband, your wife, your kids, your boss, whatever. Aikido allows those relationships to get free from the very notion of winner and loser, removing the infighting and conflicts. Other but less evident examples can also be provided on the macro scale of the society at a global level, and I will provide you one which is, I think, a little bit unexpected in a few minutes. But let's consider first a conflictual situation, okay, in general. A conflictual situation, like all the situations, has causes and consequences. That's a basic idea, okay? Very often, unfortunately, you cannot act on the causes anymore. It's too late. They belong to the past. But you can still act on the consequences. You can try to mitigate them. When you think about these ideas of clemency and conditional love, you may observe that clemency is more related to the past, more related to the causes coming from the past, while the preservation of your own integrity concerns your immediate present. You protect yourself. And unconditional love allows you to transform the situation for the future. So, to some extent, you can put these ideas or principles to a kind of timeline. Well, in addition to my Aikido teacher occupation, I'm involved in the long-term management of high-level of radioactive waste and spent fuels coming from the nuclear power plants. When you consider this high-level radioactive waste, they have a potential toxicity for the ultra long term. When I say long term, I mean 100,000 years or even 1 million years. You have to know that the safety concepts for geological repositories to put the waste in are designed for 1 million years. It is more or less an international consensus. And these solutions have to be built now by people who take care of a future that nor them, nor their children, nor their grandchildren, or even the children of their grandchildren will see. And it goes far beyond the simple survival instinct. In their concern, I see unconditional love for humanity, unconditional love for life. But to build these solutions, we need to go beyond the NIMBY attitude. You know NIMBY, this acronym to say, not in my backyard. Of course, nobody wants to live close to a radioactive waste repository, even if the safety is fully demonstrated. People prefer to say, well, it's not my fault, huh? It's not my responsibility. I was not born at that time, at the time when the decisions were taken to produce nuclear energy, etc. But there, clemency is important. We need to take a part of this collective responsibility coming from the past in order to avoid undue burdens for future generations. But it is not a question of sacrifice, of course. Our physical integrity, our own safety, our health are important as the physical integrity, the safety, the health of the other generations. But you see, these principles, these ideas, play an important role in different spheres of our society, in different spheres of our lives. There's nothing really new there. If you think about any project related to sustainable development, you will probably find these principles. There's nothing really new, but what Aikido training allows you to do, it's to engrave these principles deeper in you. Not only in your mind as a theoretical idea, but in your mind, in your body, in your flesh, in your heart, in order to find your own wisdom. That's the purpose of Aikido. I will give you this.